I'm making a team of players who absolutely hate their club to see how that will affect their performance in Football Manager. So we are going to do this experiment with Real Madrid, because honestly, Real Madrid are very good in La Liga, and a lot of their players absolutely love their club. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make every single one of Real Madrid's first team squad players. We're going to go in, make them hate their club, and we're going to see what happens. So this is actually something I stumbled upon on an earlier experiment where we made each player hate their manager. But if we go in and use the in-game editor and we look at their personal details, we can actually see players with favorite clubs and dislike clubs. So for Danny Carvajal here, for example, actually one of his favorite clubs is Real Madrid. So we are going to remove that. Then we're going to go into his dislike clubs. We're going to remove Barcelona, and we are going to go in and add Real Madrid as the club that he essentially hates the most in the world. And it's at a level of 100 out of 100, so this means that he hates it as much as he possibly could. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go through every single player in Real Madrid's first team squad. I'm going to make them dislike Real Madrid, and I will come back to you all after I've done that. All right, welcome back. I have gone through, and every single player on Real Madrid absolutely hates Real Madrid. So going into their first team details, we have Thibaut Courtois here, who hates Real Madrid as much as he possibly could, all the way down to Mariano here, who, if we look at his personal details, we can see that he hates Real Madrid as well. So I think this is going to be really interesting, and similar to the managerial experiment, I don't really know how this is going to affect the game, because if we go into their information, we can see their favored clubs. So for example, Rodrigo here is a supporter of Santos, but we don't see their dislike clubs. That's only something that if we go into the in-game editor, we go to their personal details and we go to dislike clubs. That is the only time that we can actually see that. So I don't know how this is going to affect the game, but it's interesting because we have every single player on Real Madrid who absolutely hate Real Madrid. So it'll be interesting to see if they play worse because of their hatred for the club. That being said, I did want something to compare that to. So on the flip side of things, I have gone into Barcelona, I've gone into their senior squad, and I've made every single player on Barcelona have their favorite club be Barcelona. So from Marc-Andre ter Stegen all the way down to Robert Lewandowski here, going into his personal details and looking at his favorite clubs, each player on Barcelona just absolutely loves Barcelona, which, to be fair, that was the case for a lot of the players anyway. There were only a few players that I needed to change that for. So every player on Barcelona absolutely loves their club, and every player on Real Madrid absolutely hates their club. And we're going to see how that affects each of their performances. And I think most importantly, we'll see if this has any effect on the La Liga title race. So this is going to be a one-season simulation. I'm going to simulate one season into the future, and we're going to see whether or not the love/hatred for the club had any effect on the game. See you all in one season. All right, welcome back. We are one season into the future, and we are going to look and see how each club did. So looking at the Spanish First Division, it's that Real Madrid's won the league. Let's go to status. Real Madrid's won the league. Well, there it is. Hating the club didn't change anything. And Barcelona finished third. So in the season preview, Real Madrid were supposed to finish first, and Barcelona were supposed to finish second. So Real Madrid, with every single player hating the club, still won the league. But Barcelona, with every player absolutely loving their club, actually ended up finishing third and doing a little worse than expected. And looking at the players, the player of the year was Vinicius Jr., with Nacho finishing in second. So Nacho finished in second place for player of the year as the center back. That's extremely surprising. So, I mean, even though they hated the club, their players still performed fantastically. The team of the season is riddled with players from Real Madrid, and only one player from Barcelona, Robert Lewandowski, in there. I'm assuming Lewandowski was the top scorer? Yep, so no surprise there. But clearly, I mean, looking at the team of the season, it's mostly players from Real Madrid. The player of the year was Vinicius Jr. Clearly, hating the club had no effect on how well Real Madrid did this season. And looking at how they did, I mean, they had a great season. Maybe a little bit disappointing to lose in the Super Cup final, but I mean, they lost in the final to Barcelona. They won the Club World Championship. How did they do in the Spanish Cup? They won the Spanish Cup. They lost, maybe a little bit disappointing to lose in the Champions League, but I mean, they lost in the quarterfinal to Bayern. They still did really well. I don't think that there was any effect of hating the club. I think that, I mean, they did really well ultimately. And looking at Barcelona, on the other hand, I mean, they had kind of a disappointing season. All things considered, how they did in the Champions League. I mean, they got knocked out. I mean, they got knocked out in the round of 16 to Man City. I guess that's not too bad, but lost out to Real Madrid in this the Spanish Cup. They did win the Super Cup, so I mean that was kind of good for them. But I mean, otherwise they finished third, even though all of their players just love the club. Ultimately, maybe that's a little disappointing. I am curious to see if their players still kind of love the club to I mean, yeah, they still have 100 out of 100 for players who love the club. Let's look at like someone like Marcos Alonso. Does he still really love the club? Yep, so they all love the club. What I'm curious to see though, so I mean, all of Barcelona's players still love their club despite maybe a disappointing season. I'm curious to see if Real Madrid's players still hate the club. So I'm really curious about this because we saw with the manager one that the manager, if they did everything right and they won a trophy or something, they could actually like influence some players to not hate them anymore. So I'm curious to see if this is the same case. So remember, every player on Real Madrid hated the club at a level of 100 out of 100. So they hated them as much as they possibly could have. So looking at the personal details of Thibaut Courtois, I mean, he still hates Real Madrid. So Thibaut Courtois still hates Real Madrid. Lunin here. Lunin never really played. Yeah, he still hates it. Let's see. So let's look at like Vinicius Jr. because he won Player of the Year and maybe Nacho. So dislike clubs. He doesn't hate Real Madrid as much. It's only 68 out of 100. So potentially, what about like Benzema? So players who are very influential, maybe 82 out of 100. And remember, these were all 100 out of 100, so they do not hate them as much. Valverde, he's in the starting lineup as well. Well, I mean, he still dislikes him a lot, but it's not as much as it was. So potentially winning the league and maybe playing well and being involved in the club, or at least being an important piece of the club, potentially play a role in them hating the club less. Although it looks like, yeah, for a lot of players that wasn't the case, and it looks like that would still be a long process, given that they still hate them and they didn't lose that much of their hatred towards the club. Well, there you have it. This is kind of a short one today, but I made a team. I made the entire Real Madrid squad to hate Real Madrid, and they still ended up playing fantastically well, winning La Liga, winning the Club World Championship, and winning the Spanish Cup. And some of the players, if they were really involved in the club, if they were really important, they ended up hating the club a little less. So potentially over time, they might even stop hating the club. So, I mean, if you were on a club and you found a player that hated playing for that club, like if you were looking to sign a player who hates the club, it might not make a difference because, again, we've made all of Real Madrid hate the club. They still won the league. They still made a good Champions League run, and they still won 3 trophies. On the flip side, Barcelona, even though all of their players love the club, were a little bit disappointing, finishing third in the league and only winning the Super Cup. Well, that's it. That's the video. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you all are having a wonderful week, and I'll see you all next time.